when you reach the point where a film is made, your screenplay has to do many things, but one of the things it has to do is to have a structural integrity that can withstand navigating filmmaking.
There's the script, you know, you can think of a film as having a lodestone, and then you put then you build the bridge around it, and the bridge is the point, you know. But the lodestone is there, and if the stone is taken away, the keystone, forgive me, of an arch, if it's taken away, the arch will fall. So without it, it's impossible, and it has those angles to it. But there are so many. I've always thought of a screenplay that holds water, like a balloon, that you can bash it and twist it and change it, but it will always hold its water. So some water might move, and it may change shape, but it will not burst. And what is so interesting and mysterious about great screenplays is that you can make the whole thing, in a way, I suppose. Making a film is like adapting a screenplay. You adapt the whole thing to film, and then you take out the bits that work. You can't use the stuff that doesn't work. You have to cut it. And what's interesting about that is that you can shoot something that has been essential in the screenplay, essential, and then you film it, you've adapted it to film, and you watch it and you think, I've seen that. I can see it, so I don't need to have that scene.
And yet everybody up to the point of filming thought it was going to be an absolutely vital moment.
Vital.
And that's very key, isn't it?
Because you're describing what you've just seen. So this is the interesting thing. So I suppose adaptation is indeed a double process. You adapt from book to screenplay, and then the screenplay is adapted into a film. And
it was Anthony Minghella who said that editing is the final rewrite.
Exactly so.
Which, of course, is what you're doing in that moment.
Yeah.
What you're doing is saying, actually, you know what, we don't need it.
Exactly. And then there's another mysterious thing that can happen, which is by excising something, not only from a screenplay, but also from a film. This works on both pieces of work. You can make the juxtaposition of the two remaining scenes so much more powerful by leaving something out. I mean, I think screenplays are about ellipsis. The ellipsis. So write everything and then take out the stuff and take out as much as you can until you're right at the end just going, that little bit out there. But it's still there somewhere. But what's left really pings out because of what you've taken away. I can't explain why that works, but it sometimes works in performance as well. So it seems to me that art of all kinds, performance art, it's all to do with energy. It's all about energy.
Let's talk about endings, because there's another analogy that Jim Sheridan drew, which is to do with energy, which I think is really profound and really helpful. And obviously, the end of a film is what you meant to say. But you were working with Jim on In the Name of the Father.
Yeah,
and
he said, we were talking about screenplay writing, and he said the ending, some screenwriters it's the beginning, but he said the ending should be like a magnet. And that when you think that in your head, immediately you get this pile of iron filings over here, which are the scenes, and the characters and the words, which lift up, and then as you get closer to the magnet, they get more and more magnetised, and then they start going faster and faster and faster and faster until the end, and then they're all just thump. And that's the feeling you get when you go to see a really great film at the end. It's all those iron filings have just gone whoosh, and you go out filled up with this incredible energy, and it's much like the energy of electricity, I think, great art. And a great film needs to be that. So that's your iron filings, and then the magnet's your ending. And the relationship between those two things, that seemed to me to be a very helpful tip.
Incredibly useful, very powerful. And before we come on to Nanny McPhee, I just want to talk about you as an actor and the way that your tools as an actor fold into the experience of writing. To what extent do you bring your actors' antennae to writing, or are the two different elements of the same journey?
Well, I think I bring them all the time. I mean, you saw me, those of you who were in the room, muttering to myself. So I will tend to act all the roles. I will tend to try not to write something that I think can't be said, that I can't be spoken. I mean, when I'm learning, when you're as an actor, God almighty, when you're trying to learn bad writing, forget it. You just can't learn bad writing. It's just impossible. But good writing, it just goes into your system. It's such a joy to learn good writing, and such a pain. It's awful learning bad writing. Sometimes you have to. We don't always get to do wonderful things or what we want to do. That's not what this job is like. What life is like. But when it's good, my gosh, you're so grateful.
Talk about Nanny McPhee now. So, how did that come about? How was that landed at your doorstep?
Well, that was me, actually. It was one of those odd things when I was hoovering. I was hoovering in the room which has got most of the books in my house, and I saw this little tiny volume, lifted it out, Nurse Matilda by Christiana Brand, and I sat down and looked at it and thought, oh, I remember these books about that nanny who comes and she's terribly frightening and ugly, but by the end, when they've learnt all their lessons, she's very pretty. And there's something about that I really don't like, but there's something about that I think is very interesting and actually quite anarchic. Ooh, I wonder if that would make a good film. This was long before Gaia was born.
Yes,
it wasn't
it
because
wasn't
I had children.
thought,
Like my father, I wasn't writing for children, I was writing for myself, and I found this little book and I sent it to Lindsay and said, I think I'd like to write this as a film. And she said, brilliant idea. And she doesn't always say that. And I thought, Sense and Sensibility, it was so hard, really hard book. Oh, arcane writing, Jane Austen, iconic novelist. This will be so much easier. 9 years later, 7 years in development, the first script of Nanny McPhee is not even remotely anything. I don't think there's anything in the first script of Nanny McPhee that was in the last script because it was so difficult to adapt because there's no story.
Yep. And there's something else which you've touched on. These Christiana Brand novels are more picaresque, more sequential than a structured novel, particularly with Nanny McPhee 2, was that you really only had the idea, but the idea is the key, isn't it?
Yes. Well, I was in Hitler's favourite hotel, the Hotel Adlon. He loved it there. And doing the publicity for the first Nanny.
Yeah.
And I thought, ooh, war. That would be good. That's where I got the idea in Berlin. And then I thought, but I'm going to have to write the whole thing. There's nothing here.
So it's adaptation in name only, really?
Yeah, I mean, it's taking the character, it's taking that shape, which we're going to talk about, aren't we? Because in fact, I worked out some time ago that Nanny McPhee is a Western.
Yeah.
The Western is the anarch, basically, or the cowboy, or whoever it is, it's a guy, which we just have to live with. And he comes into a situation where order has broken down, of some kind, order has broken down, and he restores order using unorthodox methods and then must leave. The vital thing is that he must leave or be killed. He cannot stay. He can't become part of that world. What's important is he's the outsider. And when I was doing the thinking about Nanny McPhee, I realised that actually I was placing the elements that I had learnt as a young child of the Western, and I had domesticated them and put them into a nursery, where, after all, we keep our most precious feelings and our most precious beings, and where the place that we would defend with our lives, were it to come to it. So, of course, it makes perfect sense that it's a Western. It's very odd, though.
It does. And before I open it up to the floor, we've touched on you as an actor, and we've talked a bit about editing. I think it's appropriate to end by talking a bit about mystery, the chimerical nature of this strange relationship between screenwriting, performing in that triangle of camera, director, actor. Because it isn't something that you can just... There is no science to it.
No. Well, that's what's exciting about it. there's a wonderful quote, which might be the good thing to end on, where it's a choreographer, actually, and she was called Agnes de Mille, and she said, living is a form of not being sure, not knowing what next or how. The artist never entirely knows. We guess. We may be wrong, but we take leap after leap in the dark. Good, huh? That's it.
Let's open it up to the floor.
I'm a playwright. I've been working as a playwright for quite a few years, and I'm trying to get my first screenplay made. And do you have any advice, first, sort of the differences in style, or secondly, just how do you get a screenplay made?
Okay. As to getting something made, your guess is as good as mine. It's not that, again, there is no science to that either. You have to. God, I don't know. I mean, Jem, help me out here. You also are a screenwriter.
I think there isn't you're absolutely right, there isn't a science. And honestly, I'm afraid we have to go back to resilience. Because, we come back to this trajectory of failure. Because, someone would think, oh, well, every script you've written gets made. I mean, can we disabuse people of that for a start?
Oh, God, no. I've written most of the screenplays I've written have not been made. So
it's very important.
And the ones that haven't been made, I've worked very, very hard on, believed in and loved, and thought they were good, but they haven't been made. So, I've handed them in, and then somebody years later has made it with a different script and said, oh yeah, we just left yours. So I've often left completely on the scrap heap without anyone even telling me. So I don't get very well treated as a writer either. So that's comforting, isn't it, really?
This lady here, you had your hand up earlier.
Thank you. My daughter and I were discussing those who feel entitled and those who feel unentitled. And in doing so, found that we shared the same role model. And so we've collaborated on this role model and come up with a script. Just curious, who's your role model?
I was hoping you were going to say me. Terribly disappointed. I really had to control what I was going to do in my face then, because I was just ready to go.
Can I ask my question again?
Thank you so much. I'm so glad that I'm your role model and your daughter's role model. And then I had to do something completely different with my face. I think it's, Jeremy said before, you must be honest in these things, and I think it's important to be honest, and so there you are. My role model is my mother, because she is a great writer. She was my first editor, and she was editing me obviously long after my father had died, because he would have been a very good editor. So I was very lucky in that both my parents could and can write.
You are in fact.
Don't do it. Don't try and do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Emma Thompson.